Okay, hi guys, and welcome to the show. Today I'm extremely excited and proud to bring you a presentation, not a review, because yes, you've guessed it, another watch I've co-designed. This time it's not my wristwatch check, which is of course the Red Line by Hanhart. This time it's with Laurier, a brand extremely close to my heart. This has actually taken 3 years. This took 6 years. This is a little bit more involved, but this one took 3 years to develop. So, without further ado, let's get into it. The genesis of this watch lies in several key timepieces. The first watch we should talk about is the original first generation of Neptune, which Laurier released with the debut of their brand in 2018. I was one of the first to jump on board as a fan, after acquiring the gilt dial variation of this modestly priced 200-meter diver. Back in 2018, the refreshing 39mm size, clever amalgamation of various 1950s and 60s divers, without being a blatant rip-off of any particular model, not only won me over, but launched this New York City-based brand on a path of greatness in the micro-brand watch world. In a relatively short time, this husband and wife team, Lorenzo and Lauren Ortega, who own and operate Laurier, kept on coming out with hit after hit, earning this brand a great deal of respect and admiration from enthusiasts. But most importantly, the finished products spoke for themselves in terms of quality, value, and design. The goals of Laurier were clear: the democratization of watches compared to the often rare or fragile vintage watches they took inspiration from, but brought bang up to date with well-made, tasteful designs that were original yet classic and always versatile. A very tricky thing to pull off. So is it any wonder that I wanted to work with them? Now, in the past, I've worked with Squire, Hanhart, of course, NTH. I've designed about 5 or 6 watches now. I'm starting to lose count. But this was different. Typically, with bigger watch brands, you don't ask them, they ask you. That's how it works. But this time, I actually met Lauren and Lorenzo, and we instantly got on, and that was, I think, around 2019, shortly after they started their brand. And because, of course, I was living in New York at the time, and they are in New York, so it was inevitable. We met, we rarely got on, and that's when I asked them, why don't we do a watch together? At the time, my 36mm classic contemporary Explorer reference 14270 was my favorite watch. Its do-it-all, any-situation capability, clean, simple design had won me over. It in turn led me to purchase a mysterious unknown skin diver by the now defunct brand called Lord Sanford that I picked up on a whim via eBay. And in case you're wondering, this was long before my Squire Sub 39 stole the crown as my favorite watch. The Explorer's time-only, iconic 3-numeral layout started an obsession that permeated into many subsequent acquisitions. Just look at my current Seamaster, the Squire I just mentioned, and this long-lost gem I scored for under $300 at the time. The Swiss-made, manually wound 17-jewel-based Lord Sanford, or Lordy as I had started calling it by then, was an obvious homage to the Omega Ranchero, the cancelled Fourth Musketeer, to the now famous Omega 1957 Trilogy. The Ranchero was originally intended as a kind of everyday tool watch / field watch that could also work in more formal situations. Its similarities to what the Explorer has become and why I love it so much is, well, it's obvious, you know, you can see the parallels there. So my goal was to kind of recreate that at a more affordable level, you know, a little bit of Explorer, a little bit of a Ranchero with Laurier. So then we saw what we could come up with. 1957 was a crucial year for Omega, introducing what is arguably its most iconic tool watch trio: the Seamaster 300 for the first time as a diver, the Speedmaster racing chronograph, and Railmaster. What these watches all had in common was the remarkably similar design language. For example, they all had bold, easy-to-read, broad arrow hands for quickly distinguishing minutes from hours. In the case of the Seamaster, Ranchero, and Railmaster, the watches shared similar fonts and numeral indices for the same purpose. So the Ranchero ran for about 2 years, and Omega, for whatever reason, it's still a mystery, if anybody knows, do add in the comments, decided to discontinue it. The quadrilogy became a trilogy, and of course, predictably, it's become super rare and highly sought after by collectors. But for whatever reason, the unknown brand Lord Sanford decided to base the design of their skin diver on the Ranchero, resulting in what I can only describe as utter perfection. Thin, elegant, yet functional, this balanced and classically proportioned watch encapsulates everything I want in a do-it-all, any situation, everyday watch. But unfortunately, I could not find anything out about this watch or the brand itself. There was only one solution. We had to remake it for the modern age. And who better than the brand who had proved themselves time and time again as masters of vintage-inspired watch design. Laurier thankfully agreed with me that the Lord Sanford was an outstanding watch. So immediately we started basing our designs on it. For all the armchair watchmakers out there who, never made a watch in their lives but loved, to complain about on the internet, it's a really lengthy process, often can take years of trial and error, and we had a lot of problems with it. In fact, I'll share with you some of them right now. Sadly, the prototypes were nothing short of terrible. Aside from numerous production problems, finding a manual wind movement within budget that was ultra thin to make it have the same lordy vibes, but most importantly, reliable enough to meet our high standards, proved problematic. The prototypes lacked that inexplicable magic or X-factor that the Lordy had, no matter how much we tweaked it. Then the final nail in the coffin, as I had agreed, to move from New York City to Philadelphia in 2019 until 2020 as part of a work contract. With that year in Philadelphia successfully completed, in 2020 I once again was able to continue the project, but by this time we needed to find a different kind of watch case that could house an automatic movement without being too statuesque. Lorenzo, by this point, was obsessed with the 1940s Rolex Bubblebacks, which occasionally also had similar dial layouts and were roughly the same scale as the watches I was obsessed about. He suggested we blend elements of the Lordy's distinctive angular lug tips, the broad arrow handset, and the time-only complications with characteristics of the Bubblebacks. At first, I was somewhat skeptical. The Bubbleback was never a watch I had much interest in, but that soon changed when Lorenzo presented his first sketches. Prototypes were soon made in various dial colors, and like several Bubblebacks, they featured thermally blued hands. Most affordable watches under $500 just paint them. As you can see from my many factory tour visits, it's a labor-intensive and expensive process to undertake. However, I was insistent on making them the real traditional way or not at all. The reason is thermally blued hands have a luster to them that no matter how well you paint them, you simply cannot imitate the real deal. So then Lauren and Lorenzo came to Philadelphia just to show me the prototypes. These are those prototypes. There are slight imperfections because these are not the final finished things that you will get, but God, it was clear we had something special. We had something that had its own identity, yet paid tribute to the watches that we mutually loved. Yeah, and oh my God, it was clear that we had to pursue it further. Now, they do come on this pearl-on strap, and I'll talk about that in just a moment, but I've actually swapped the white dial to this distressed kind of suede little sexy number here, and it just comes alive, absolutely. The white is definitely the strap monster out of the two because the copper, might clash with certain colors. Oh, and we added drilled lug holes because, of course, well, especially for this one, you're gonna have a lot of fun putting all kinds of different straps, and it works on all kinds of different straps as well. The fully polished Bubbleback style curvy marine grade steel case features the straight edge between the lugs that made most Bubblebacks so distinctive. Proportioned at the same 36mm in diameter, its scale follows faithfully the quintessential 90s Rolex Explorer that I adore so much. A few Bubblebacks came with salmon pink dials, but most often in white or black. This in turn inspired Lorenzo to try something similar with the watch in either a concentric brushed copper color or a less divisive ivory white that mimics the great enamel dials of traditional watchmaking. Both watches feature symmetrical crosshair layouts with crisp black printing outlining the markers and rail track style hash marks at the periphery. The Explorer dial Arabic numerals and triangle at 12 o'clock break the symmetry to give a perfect sense of orientation at a quick glance and functionality to the Swiss C3 Superluminova luminescence. The Lordi-inspired handset all have clearly positioned and different shaped lume, again to differentiate the large arrow of the hours to that of the smaller minute hand and circular lollipop of the seconds. Now, despite it being sized very elegantly, kind of like a dress watch, I was extremely insistent that it had at minimum 100 meters water resistance, because I felt that this is what's made, well, one of the key components of making Rolex so successful, so wearable and dependable, is the fact that you can wear them suited and booted, but also in the swimming pool, on adventures, etc. So yeah, this was non-negotiable for this, and they've achieved it, so I'm very, very happy about that. And of course, mainly down to that screw-down crown. Inside, we have the redoubtable Miyota caliber 9039 automatic movement with no date, so thankfully that eradicates the ghost date problem that plagues a lot of watches like this. The Japanese-made high-frequency 28,800 vibrations an hour, minute, hour and seconds only movement is relatively new and debuted in 2018. However, it is based on the 9000 series of Miyota more premium movements, so therefore has all the inherent robustness and respectable accuracy that can easily rival COSC-like deviations if properly regulated. Along with a decent 42-hour power reserve, naturally we have the crucial manual wind and hacking capabilities. Being quite a slender movement too, this was the natural choice. As with most Laurier watches, and in fact I think all Laurier watches, I might be wrong about that, do correct me if I'm wrong, but it comes with a domed Hesselite crystal. Very deliberate. Some people say, oh, it's corners cut, sapphires, it should be sapphire, blah, 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 all this stuff. No, very deliberate. It has these vintage distortions that you just don't get with domed sapphire. But what is really cool is that Laurier have now teamed up with Polywatch, so you get a little tube of Polywatch with each watch, not just the Safari here. When I first showed Lorenzo and Lauren the Lordi, I happened to be wearing it on a melange strap by my good friends Wrist Candy Watch Club. So taken by this stylish, yet waterproof and infinitely adjustable pearl-on strap, we all concluded it would be the best option for the Safari. It has the same added security, like a NATO Zulu strap in case of a spring bar malfunction. However, its look is more refined. In a way, it's a reflection of the watch itself, with its dressy but tool hybridization. Also, the breathable weave you can adjust to any size, along with it being super light. It keeps down the overall weight with an impressive ultimate comfort. So a massive thank you to Wrist Candy Watch Club for providing these straps. So the Rolex Bubblebacks got their name from this kind of distended case backs, and they were designed deliberately to make the watch appear slimmer on the face of the watch. Now, we don't have to do that here, thankfully. It just kind of imitates the look of a Bubbleback, but not the tubbiness. So the case back, including the domed crystal there, it comes out to a very cuff-friendly, just a smidgen over 11 millimeters. That was a very important aspect. I didn't want the watch to be too thick. So there you have it, a watch that after many trials and tribulations has evolved into a true capo lavoro. Super versatile but affordable, a dash of luxury with those thermally blued hands and sumptuous dials, No matter if you are actually on safari or suited and booted, you are covered. In terms of availability, I really wanted something most Gentry members could afford, so it had to be under $500. As the Hanhart Red Lion 4170S limited edition sold out in less than 12 hours, Laurier have decided to make this a time-limited release instead. So you only have a certain amount of time to buy it, and then that's it. Anyone who desires one after that first batch can still get one, but it will have to be made to order and ship in about 4 to 6 months from the time of this video. So which one do you guys prefer, the enamel white or that copper salmon pink? For me, it's the latter. There's something very dapper about it, for lack of a better expression. And also, it's unlike anything in my current collection. Speaking of which, stay tuned for State of the Collection. I can finally do it now. But before I go, I just want to say a massive thank you to Lauren and Lorenzo for making this possible. I'm just over the moon, as you can imagine. What a fantastic way to end the year with 2 collaborations like this. What else? I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it and found it useful. Onwards and upwards, and I will catch you in the next one. Okay, ciao.